Sairam and welcome to the next session in computational linear algebra. In this session, we are going to connect what we have learned till now, elimination and the matrix multiplication view, in order to bring up something very beautiful, right? So let us begin this session with a prayer. Om Sai Ishwaraya Vidmahe Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. In the last session, we have been looking at elementary matrices, and we found that we could use matrix multiplication in order to perform row operations. So we looked at different row operations, and we were specific about the order, right? So we said the first one goes here, followed by the second, followed by the third. And we were also looking at matrix multiplication properties. More importantly, we said it's associative but it's not commutative. Okay, finally, what we have from the last session is that a series of such elementary row operations represented by each one represented by a matrix, an elementary matrix, and multiplying them with this matrix A gives us an upper triangular matrix U. Now there are some interesting properties that we would like to take note of, and from there we can bring up a very beautiful insight. First question that we would like to answer in this session is, are elementary matrices for row operations, are they always low triangular matrices? Right? Is it possible for us to check and prove that they always happen to be low triangular? Second question, fine, if they're low triangular, that's one aspect. What about the product of low triangular matrices? Right? Does the product again exhibit some interesting properties? And finally, we will also talk about what about their inverses. Okay, so let's start with the first question. Are the elementary row operation or the elementary matrices, are they always low triangular? Okay, here is a simple example. We'll start with this example. Let's say that I have this as my elementary matrix. Let me give it some name. Let's say I call it E1, right? Can we figure out what row operation this is performing, right? Remember that there is no change in the first row, there is no change in the second row. That means that the change is going to happen in the there is no change in the first row and third row. There is a change that's happening in the second row. And when we say this, remember that we are taking E1 and we are doing a pre-multiply on A, right? That's the point. So if we apply this E1 as a pre-multiplier to A, what operation, which row operation would it perform on A? Definitely it's going to be on row 2. So I can write this much, saying that row 2 is going to get changed. What would that be? Minus 2 times row 1 plus row 2, right? So in row operation terms, we would like to write it as row 2 minus 2 times row 1, right? This is the way we have been writing this. Okay, let's try it out here. What does this matrix tell us? Okay, there is no change in row 1, there is no change in row 2, there is a change in row 3, right? So let me write that down. So it's going to be row 3 change. And what will be the change? This is going to be row 3 plus 3 times row 2. This is row 3 plus 3 times row 2, right? But when we write our row operation, we write it with subtraction. Therefore, we can write it as minus 3 times row 2, right? So the way we are performing row operations, please note down something, that when we were looking here for row 2, we were looking at this minus 2 here. Similarly, when we are trying to get this for row 3, we were probably more looking at these two numbers here, right? It is always like the moment I'm looking at the row that is getting operated, row 2, I'm only looking at the number before that. I don't think we are using this number, and we are able to figure out that because it's low triangular. Okay, so let me read this statement out. It says the way we perform row operations Ri is using Ri minus 1, Ri minus 2, so on up to R1. Right? What does this convey to us? In the row operations that we perform in elimination, look at those elimination operations. How do we work? We say row 2 should be changed to row 2 minus 2 times row 1. Have we ever written row 2 is set to row 2 plus row 3 or row 2 minus row 3? Never. Right? If you see here, row 3 again is using row 2. Right? Okay, there may be times where row 3 will use row 1. That is fair. So that's the point we are making here. The way we perform row operations, Ri is using only Ri minus 1, Ri minus 2, so on up to R1. So if you pick up a row here, you want to knock this element down, we will be only talking about subtracting from this probably something from the first row. If you want to knock out this element, maybe we are going to say knock out, using row 2, let us try and knock out this element, right? That is how we have been working. What does this tell us? Since we know the matrix row, the row view of matrix multiplication, it tells us that if you want to use only row I minus 1, row I minus 2 up to row 1, then the coefficients of those are going to occur only before this diagonal element. Right? This point should become quite clear to us. Okay, let me take this example. Let's say that we're talking about the row 3 here. As a part of, so if I give it some name, let's say E2, and let's talk about E2 times A. Remember that this is actually operating on the third row of A. For the third row of A, remember that we are only looking at these two coefficients. When I want to operate on the second row of A, I have to look at only this coefficient. Why? Because my combination or the row operations that we perform is only using the rows before that. It never uses for row operation a row after that. What does that convey to us? That we only need in elementary matrices coefficients that come, which should be non-zero before the diagonal element. And that conveys something very easy. It says that elementary matrices are lower triangular. Okay, let's move to the second part. Here our question is, can we talk about the product of lower triangular matrices? Okay, we are aware of this equation which we have seen in the last session, and we know that E3, E2, E1 is actually going to be a product of lower triangular matrices. How do we know it's going to be a product of lower triangular? Because just above we have argued and proved that elementary matrices for row operations are going to be lower triangular. So now we want to discuss what will be the product of lower triangular matrices. Now instead of trying to consider 3 or say more, let us simply consider only 2. The moment I am able to figure out a property of 2 lower triangular, then we can just continue with that property on with the third, then with the fourth, etc. Right? So here is an example. Let's say I have 2 lower triangular matrices. Let's say that this is A and B. We are working only with square matrices as of now for elimination technique. So let's say that A, B gives me C. And purposefully I have kept A and B as lower triangular matrices. Now let's look at the row view of multiplication for rows of C. So look at this. How does the first row of C look like? First row of C is going to be, remember that we are looking at row view of multiplication, which means that B is pre-multiplied by A. Therefore, rows of C are linear combinations of rows of B. So pick up row vectors from here, pick up these elements from here and apply this combination. That will be the ith row of C. Okay. So how does the first row look like? It is going to be a linear combination of the first row here, B1, 0, 0, followed by, B1, 1, 0, 0. After that, the second row here and the third row here. The scalars will come from the first row of A, which is A11 here, 0 and 0. Now, consider the first row of C. In the first row of C, the diagonal element is in the first element itself, right? So C11 is going to become the diagonal element. If at all we want a non-zero value in C12, right? Suppose I want C12 to be a non-zero value. How can that come? That can come if the contribution should happen from either B22 or from B32. Is it not? Because this row is of no use. Whatever be the scalar here, I have a 0 here. There is no point. This guy cannot contribute to this C12 element. At least we need from row 2 onwards in B, they can contribute to this element of C. Okay, either B22 should contribute or B32 should contribute. But unfortunately what happens is this scalar and this scalar becomes 0. Therefore what happens, you can put whatever value you want here, but C12 cannot be non-zero. It will become 0, right, because of these two zeros here. Similar argument I can make for C13 also and say that can we attempt and see will it become non-zero. So C12 we said no, it can't be. For C13 to be non-zero, no use of the first row, no use of the second row, we need the third row to contribute, and particularly this guy. Okay, fine, you can keep whatever value here, but the point is that this guy is a 0 which is coming from the first row of A, therefore he can't contribute. Okay, so what does that convey? It conveys that for the first row, max to max the non-zero element is going to be the very first element. The other two will definitely happen to be 0 because the two scalars here in the first row are zeros, right? Now you can just extend this argument to the other rows as well and we will be able to appreciate. So let me read out our conclusion. What this conveys is, for the ith row of C to have a non-zero element in Cii plus 1, right? When I say Cii plus 1, you can think like this, C12, or if you say I is 4, then you can talk about C45. In fact, you can talk about any element after the diagonal element, C45, C46, C47, anything you want we can assume. So the point is, for the ith row of C to have a non-zero element after the diagonal, that's what we are trying to intend here. We need contributions from at least I plus 1th row of B. Why I plus 1th row? Because if I take the ith row here, suppose you say the ith row is this guy. This guy can contribute only till B22. He can't contribute to this element of C. That will be 0, and before that obviously remaining elements are 0. So nobody can contribute except that from this row somebody can contribute to this element, right? So that's what we are meaning here. So for C in a row, if the element after the diagonal element has to be non-zero, we need contributions from at least the I plus 1th row of B, right? But the problem is, look at the scalar in the ith row of A and I plus 1th element. Obviously that will be 0. Obviously that will be 0. So why will that be 0? Because A is low triangular. Therefore, how much ever you try to take values in B, that's not going to help us. What does this convey? This conveys that product of low triangular matrices is also low triangular. Is a very important find. Okay, now let's go up and see what we have achieved. Remember, we were talking about 3 matrices or 4 matrices or n matrices. What we have figured out is E1 and E2 being two lower triangular matrices, this product is going to be lower triangular. Let's call it E4. Now look at E3, E4. What will that be? That will also be lower triangular. So pick up any number of low triangular matrices and we have got our proof. It says that product of low triangular matrices has got to be low triangular. Okay, let's move ahead to the third question. The third question we are looking at is the inverse of matrices. Now we have not spoken a word of what is an inverse, right? That's why in this session we are not approaching the inverse from a formal methodical angle. We are looking at the intuitive idea of an inverse. And for that we don't need some matrix theory, we just need pure logic. Okay, first question is going to be, if I have this as my elementary matrix, let me give it a name again. Let's say we call this E1. What is the row operation that it performs? The row operation that it performs is in row 2. There is no change in row 1, no change in row 3. The change is in row 2, and what it does is it is actually doing minus 2 times row 1 plus row 2. I can also write like this. Obviously, we have been writing it as row 2 minus 2 times R1, right? We can write it like this also, but remember that we used to write it like this. We're saying row 2 minus 2 times R1. Okay. Now suppose we are asked, please undo this action. Please reverse this action. This action has to be done. You can't help it. This will happen. But can you please reverse this action? Oh God. Okay. Now how do we reverse that action? What did we do? We had original row 2. From there, we have subtracted 2 times R1. What is the meaning of reversing the action? It means that I will add 2 times row 1 to R2. As simple as that. So let me repeat this. I have original, this is the new updated row 2, but original row 2, we subtracted 2 times R1. So in order to undo this operation, what do? We are going to add 2 times row 1 back to the updated R2. And what will that give us? It will give us back the original R2. Brilliant. Now that is again a row operation. If the undoing operation is also a row operation, it can also be represented by an elementary matrix. And therefore, we will have to now look at what if we are asked to do row 2 plus 2 times row 1, right? And that must get set to our row 2. So remember that this is the actual operation, but this is the undoing that operation, the inverse of that operation. If we have to represent this in a matrix, let me try and writing it here, right? So no change in the first row, no change in the third row. What will be the second row? It's got to be row 2 plus 2 times R1, which means that row 2 contribution is 1. There's no row 3, so there will be 0, and it will be 2 times row 1. Very interesting kind of a matrix. What is going to be interesting is, what you're claiming now is that this is performing a row operation and this matrix is undoing that operation. In an intuitive sense, we are going to write this as E1 inverse. Why? Because it's inversing this operation. Why is this interesting? Let's try and multiply these matrices and see what we get. Right? So 1 0 0 times 1 into minus 2 0. So that will give me 1. 1 0 0 into 0 1 0 0. 1 0 0 into 0 0 1 0. 2 1 0 1 minus 2 0. 2 1 0 into 1 minus 2 0. That is a 2 into 1 2, 1 into minus 2 plus 0. 2 plus minus 2 plus 0 0. Okay. 2 1 0 0 1 0. Only 1 and 1. This will be a 1. 2 1 0 0 0 1. That's a 0. Okay, last one 0 1 0, and here 0 1 0. This is gone. There will be a sorry, I think I made a mistake here. So let me just change this. Sorry. It should have been a 0 0 1 because there is no change in the third row. Beg your pardon. Okay, so 0 0 1 into this will give me a 0. 0 0 1 into the second column will give me a 0, and the last one will give me a 1. And what do we find? That's the identity matrix. And that also shows another way of understanding that this guy is the inverse. Okay, let us do one more. Let's take one more example. Let us ask ourselves, what is the row operation here? In this case, the row operation is on row 3. So let me write this down. So it's got to be row 3. Row 3 is being set to row 3 minus, this is a plus 3 here, therefore it will be minus 3 times row 1. Okay, let's undo this operation. What does this say? This says that from row 3, please subtract out minus 3 times R1. So then I am going to add minus 3 times R1. As simple as that, right? Remember, we subtracted 2 times here, we added that 2 times. We said now I'm subtracting minus 3 times, there I'll be adding it minus 3 times. Therefore, let's write down its inverse now. So if we call this E2, then let's look at E2 inverse. No change in first row, no change in the second row. There is a operation being done on the third row. We want to undo that operation, and we said from row 3, which means this is 1, no touching row 2, so there will be 0, and we will now, instead of minus this, we will say add and minus 3. This will become minus 3 here, right? So it's pretty simple to find, right? You can see the pattern of inverses of elementary matrices. All that we need to do is, wherever we have under the lower triangle, whichever is a non-zero element, we just invert its sign. The one and only element that's got to be non-zero under the lower triangular elementary matrix is becoming an inverse here. Invert the sign and we have got the inverse of the matrix itself, right? Just to verify, we can multiply this and then check. So 1 0 0 into 1 0 3, so this will be a 1, 1 0, so this is a 0, 1 0 0 into 0 0 1, that's a 0, 0 1 0, so this is gone, that's a 0, 0 1 0, there will be a 1, 0 1 0 into 0 0 1, so that will be a 0. Minus 3 0 1, there will be a minus 3, there is a plus 3 plus 0, therefore this will be a 0. Minus 3, this is gone, 0, and this is 0, right? And minus 3 0 1 times 0 0 1, that's a 1. And yes, we are right that this is again the identity. So we figured out the inverse of the second elementary matrix as well. What is the interesting property that we see? The interesting property that we see is E1 inverse is lower triangular. What about E2 inverse? Is also lower triangular. Fantastic. We can even argue that theoretically, and we can come up saying that. How do I come up with this? I know that this two matrices is giving me this matrix, and we can look at this matrix multiplication under the row view and use the same argument as we did above and said that I just need coefficients here in the lower triangular in order to get this matrix, and therefore this will also happen to be lower triangular. So there are three important facts that we have got. First point, elementary matrices that perform row operations are low triangular. Second point, product of low triangular matrices is also low triangular. Third point, the inverse of low triangular matrices also happens to be low triangular. Okay, so with these three facts in mind, let us try and actually take a simple example, a 3 by 3 case, 3 variable, 3 equation, and try to perform elimination. Okay, so here is my example. I picked up the coefficient matrix. The first coefficient to be knocked out is this guy. So I am doing a row 2 minus twice R1. How did I get it? 4 by 2. That's my this coefficient divided by this pivot. Perform the operation. This is my matrix. I need to knock out the minus 2. So my multiplier is going to be minus 2 divided by 2, which is a minus 1. So here it is, the multiplier. Come down. I get this answer. I have to knock out this 8 here. So minus 8 divided by, 8 by minus 8 is giving a minus 1. And therefore that's my next multiplier. I finish it and I am now left with this final matrix. So what do we know about this matrix? That's an upper triangular matrix, because elimination always leads us to an upper triangular matrix. Now let us try and figure out the elementary matrices for these row operations. Right, so let me write down the row operations here. So you can see here what I have written down. The first one is R2 minus 2R1, R3 minus minus 1 R1, R3 minus minus 1 R2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let me go down now. R2 minus 2 R1, R3 minus minus 1 R1, R3 minus minus 1 R3. Let us try and write the matrices for them. Okay, so first matrix, no change in row 1, no change in row 3. Sorry, I think I'm consistently making this mistake, beg your pardon. So this is 0, 0, 1. Second one, there is a change. Row 2 once comes with -2 here. This will be a 0. Right? So let's figure out the next one here. No change in first 2 rows. And the last one, there is a change. So there's going to be -1 here, nothing in row 2, and there will be a 1 here. Okay, let's move to the next one. Row 3 -1 row 3. So there is some mistake here. This should have been row 3 -1 row 2. Okay, so there's no change in the first row, no change in the second row. The third row, there is a change. That's going to be a -1, and this will be a 1. No row 1 involved. So, right, we have now figured out the 3 elementary matrices E1, E2, and E3 from our row operations. Let us check whether E3, E2, E1 times A gives us really U or not. Right, so I can show you. I can even get this U there down, and then we can verify. Right, okay. So let me try and multiply these 3 matrices, and then we will continue from there. Sorry, there's one mistake that I committed here. So when we looked at R2 minus 2R1, I think this made sense, but I think here this is wrong, right? So row 3 -1 times R1, since coefficient of R1 is becoming +1, right? So this is not correct. This will be a +1 here. And even here, right, this is becoming plus. That's a mistake, sorry. And therefore there is a change in E2 and E3, so this must be a plus here as well as a plus, right? So let me now do the multiply, and then we will continue. Okay, so let's so I figured out the calculations, so let's look at the calculations. So what I've done is I've simply multiplied E3 and E2, got the product here, that I multiplied with E1. I have this complete matrix. And this should not be a surprise that this is a low triangular matrix, right? Why that should not be a surprise? Because we have understood that product of low triangular matrices give us again a low triangular matrix. So I've just called it with the name E, and here it is. So if I pick up this matrix now and multiply that with A, obviously I should get the upper triangular matrix U, right? I have just verified that. So let me quickly summarize what we have done. We have done elimination on a linear system and found the upper triangular matrix. From that elimination, we have converted those row operations into elementary matrices as E1, E2, E3. We combine them using matrix multiplication. We have got a single matrix here called as E, which when pre-multiplied to A will give us an upper triangular matrix. Right? This is the summary of what we have done till now. Okay. Now let's proceed from here to look at how do we undo these elementary operations. And we may actually ask a question, why do I need to undo? But that is what actually brings us a beautiful insight. So let me move ahead. So here it is. I have written down E1 here. We know the process of finding E1 inverse, right? Take the one odd non-zero element here and then negate its sign or invert its sign, and we get the inverse. As simple as that. We can even verify by multiplying. We should be able to get the identity, right? So similarly, I have found for E2 and E3. Right? You see here the +1 has become -1. +1 here has also become -1. Now let's look at this equation. This is something that's familiar for us. So what happens is, we have the matrix A, to which first an operation on E1 happens, then the E2 operation, then the E3 operation. That's in order, and the order is extremely important. So this is like we are taking a book and first putting a brown cover over the book. After that, we are putting a cloth cover over the book, and finally we are putting it in a cotton box and then sending it across. Now when we receive the box, how do we get the book? We have to get the book by first removing the cotton box. Then we'll remove the cloth cover. Then we'll remove the brown cover. Then we'll get the finally we'll lay our hands on the book. Similarly, when we do these operations, we want to apply the undoing operations on these, what must I apply first so that I can cancel this operation? Since we have applied action 1, 2 and 3, I must undo that as reverse of 3, reverse of 2 and reverse of 1, right? Now look at these equations. What happens if I pre-multiply this with E3 inverse? So if I pre-multiply this with E3 inverse, I should do the same thing on the right hand side as well. So I pre-multiply the U with E3 inverse. Similarly, I am going to pre-multiply by E2 inverse on both sides. Then I finally pre-multiply with E1 inverse on both sides. What does this give me? Look at this. E3 inverse and E3 will give me the matrix I, right? And E2 inverse times I is anyway E2 inverse, and therefore E2 inverse I and E2 will give me the identity. So that will again be an identity. E1 inverse identity is again E1 inverse. So E1 inverse and this will remove, and finally we get A on the left hand side. Now look at this. We are having here A, and we are saying the right hand side is E1 inverse, E2 inverse, E3 inverse times U. Okay, and we know something about these. You know what we proved? We said that elementary matrices are low triangular and their inverses are also low triangular. So E1 inverse is low triangular. So same with E2 inverse and E3 inverse. What else do we know? That the product of low triangular matrices has to be low triangular, and therefore this entire product will also be low triangular, and therefore let's represent this as a low triangular matrix L times upper triangular matrix U. That is the insight that this brings, right? It says that if I have a matrix, n by n matrix, I will be able to factor it into a lower triangular and an upper triangular matrix. This has its own advantages. So in this current example, let me try and show you how the lower triangular matrix looked. What are the numbers that appear there, and that will bring us further insight. So you can go ahead and multiply these three, and here it is. I have written this down. This is the lower triangular matrix. What should not be a surprise is that this happens to be lower triangular. The reason is because it's a product of three lower triangular matrices. What is more interesting about it is, let us look at its elements in the lower triangle, right? Under this main diagonal, let us look at these elements. We've got 2, -1 and -1. What is very interesting about these elements is, let us go and see what are the multipliers that we looked at when we perform the row operations. Right? So look at the multiplier here. It is 2, -1 and -1. 2 for the element here at 2, 1. -1 for the element here at 3, 1. And -1 for an element here at 3, 2. So that's the idea. 2, 1 is having a 2, a -1 at 3, 1, and at 3, 2 we have -1. Let's look at the lower triangular matrix. See something very similar. The multiplier appearing in each of those places exactly, right? And that is the insight that we must be able to understand. So again, let me quickly summarize. We started with 3 questions. The elementary row matrices are low triangular, their product is low triangular, and their inverses are low triangular. With that, we proceeded ahead and we found that A can be factorized into a low triangular matrix and an upper triangular matrix. And one more interesting property about this L is that the lower triangle elements are same as the multipliers in our row operations, right? So that summarizes this session. We will continue with LU factorization in the next session. Let us end this session with a prayer. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.